the remainder of my time, and I now recognize Mr. Marshall for 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm going to ask you all about innovation. I want you to think about what's out there, the greatest, latest. Don't be afraid if it's a crazy idea. Think outside the box. What's going on in the world that's innovative? I'm particularly interested in phytoplankton farming or kelp farming. I think about the shellfish industry. Maybe we should be trying to grow more kelp than worried about the genetic editing of oysters or something like that. So maybe, Ms. Blair, we'll start with you and go backwards. Maybe take 30 seconds. What's out there that's great and late in innovation?
Well, I agree with you that there is some really great innovation in kelp farming, and the relationship between kelp and shellfish is fabulous. It's difficult to permit, however, so when we talk about policies, this is something that we'll need to talk a little bit more about. I think also to make a connection with your amber waves of grain, I think there's a lot of fabulous work that's been done in genetics for wheat and grain that we need to also apply to shellfish and see what we can be doing there. It's a very new concept, but it's great to understand how genetically organisms can be not modified, but finding families that are more resistant to some of these challenges.
Great. If you can get to us what you need, you mentioned some type of some processes or that would help you to do more of the kelp farming, let us know. And by the way, I think the Department of Agriculture would do a great job overseeing the gene editing compared to the FDA. Just an aside. Dr. Fraser, you're up.
Great, thank you. So I would agree as well. I think that there are certainly molecular advances that we can employ to help identify more resilient strains of particular organisms and to focus on perhaps using those in mitigation efforts. I'm interested in your phytoplankton and kelp question. I agree with you there that phytoplankton and kelp take up and assimilate a large amount of CO2, and so do other things such as seagrass beds. And I think what we should try to do is safeguard those habitats so that they can continue to perform like they're supposed to. The issue of actually trying to increase their abundance or grow them, I think we do face some challenges right now with regard to scalability, and that's something that...
Are people doing it? Are people researching it? Is University of Florida leading the charge? Who's leading the charge on it?
I think there's universities, or certainly the University of Florida is doing some of that, and other universities around the nation are trying to invest to figure out how to increase the capabilities of autotrophs, phytoplankton, and other organisms to grow, right, and sequester that carbon.
Thanks. Yeah, Dr. Horton.
Yeah, I like how your question about innovation references both the potential for greenhouse gas mitigation, measures that could take carbon out of the atmosphere, but also adaptation and resilience. I think we really do need both. By reducing emissions, we can buy ourselves time for some of these technologies to come into play with the right kind of investments, as you say. I guess one other quick thing to highlight within the adaptation space is, again, from a modeling perspective, can we test out some of these solutions, things like storm surge barriers, dredging, so we can better understand costs and benefits associated with those activities. There might be an obvious benefit of preventing a storm surge, but what could be some of the potential downsides? And some of that gets into the social science of sort of moral hazard. What if a barrier fails? I think there's a whole bunch of social science questions involving those living at the coast, how they perceive some of these emerging hazards, potential changes in real estate value that are maybe sort of outside the realm of the science component, but deep social science questions that we're engaging with communities in as they sort of lead the charge in thinking about these resilience issues.
Thanks. Yeah. Dr. Cooley.
I think it's a great question. Innovation is so important, but technology and devices is just one piece. So the other piece is innovation in decision making and how we put that information to work. You mentioned that your work in healthcare, you've gotten a great front seat to what innovation has done. What we see there is that new devices have given more information for better patient care and better collective decision making. We're learning a lot more about how to do that in the ocean environment. The example that Ms. Polaro outlined in the West Coast has been a great example of how better technology for shellfish growers has led to a better regional outcome. And I think we need to take the best lessons from that and learn how to apply it to the ocean common resources that we want to care about.
All right. I'm going to go over my time here, so I better yield back since